So a new discovery.
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Climate crisis. Penguins.
It's cold, Basil. It's cold. Antarctica, go first. It's a snowstorm. Antarctica. Ice scientists are penguins. Antarctica, they're opening the abyss.
This is StarTribune.com, and we've been not neglecting, but just put Antarctica on a shelf for a few episodes here, but it's back, and it affirms all of our theories.
It certainly helps.
Yeah, StarTribune.com. University of Minnesota scientist brings Antarctic work home via TikTok.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Glaciologist and climate scientist Peter Neff is helping run an ambitious project to drill for ancient ice in Antarctica. Peter Neff, a climate scientist at the University of Minnesota, looked out the window of a C-17 on the way to Antarctica in 2012 when the world was about to end. Neff has been to the continent 4 times and is part of a new project to find some of the oldest ice ever drilled. What does the chunk of ice sound like when it hits the bottom of a 90-meter hole glacier? The answer? Something like a bullet whizzing by your head. This was really, I don't know if you've heard this, Basil, the sound. It's very interesting. I think we played it before. You want
to play it?
I got to open links and stuff. We can. Let me see here. It sounds
right
like lasers.
It's a Twitter link and it's just right there.
Yeah, it sounds like lasers and like
it's
Star
like a
Wars.
Cartoon ricochet bullet sound.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see if this loads here.
I'm listening to it on my side. It's fun.
I know. Well, why don't you share with people, Basil? This is a family show
because my entire computer got destroyed 2 weeks ago and I haven't been able to rebuild my jingle board abilities.
Here we go. Let's hear this. There it is.
It's trippy.
So anyway, it's just the horn thing. The University of Minnesota professor Peter Neff, a virtual tweet. What? For University of Minnesota professor Peter Neff, a viral tweet showing this phenomenon launched his scientific work into the world of social media, where he's now educating TikTok users about polar ice and climate change.
Oh, yay.
Neff, 35, is a glaciologist and climate scientist who has made multiple trips to Antarctica to sample ice that's hundreds of thousands of years old. He landed on TikTok in the midst of a push by the company 2 years ago to lure experts to the video sharing app. Yeah, man, it doesn't sound like an intelligence operation at all.
They do not mention this. 2 years ago is when the government started trying to lure experts onto TikTok, not for climate reason or not. Well, they've did it for climate.
They did it for climate, but it was mostly the vaccine stuff.
Yeah, they wanted doctors on TikTok to propagandize children, and along with that, they did also pull climate scientists to propagandize children.
Right. Yep. Let's see. For every post, a flood of comments pour in. What do we know about Earth's climate from thousands of years ago? What tests are run on the ice that scientists drill? And what's the oldest piece of ice Neff has ever put in a glass of whiskey? About 100,000 years old. It wasn't usable for testing. The platform provides regular people rare access to a climate scientist. TikTok providing rare access to climate scientist, Neff said.
This is really what sold this article for me. Like, oh no, how could we possibly get access to a climate scientist? It's not like the literal government pays them to have social media accounts, or that every single day we are pummeled, our brains are avalanched with 99% of climate scientists agree you need to set your lawn on fire to protect the climate. It's not like we have climate scientists on every mainstream news channel 24/7, or that Twitter, there's just an army of climate scientists, or those claiming to be them, blue check marked and pushed into our timeline without our consent. Yeah, no, we need TikTok. We need the government of the Communist Party of China to give us rare access to a climate scientist. Thank you, Neff.
it's a race, and we've been seeing this from countries all around the world, but it says Antarctic science is in a catch-up moment after 2 years of COVID-related disruptions to fieldwork. Paul Cutler, the program director for Antarctic science at the National Science Foundation, said any new projects far from the U.S. base of operations are now 3 years behind. At the same time, a research race is underway. Scientists in the U.S. and several other parts of the world are searching for some of the oldest ice on the planet, and NEF will be a part of it. Quote, they're really trying to address fundamental questions about how the climate system works, Cutler said. Okay.
Exactly.
How are they able to say everything's climate change when their very process of researching it is to figure out the fundamental workings of the climate system?
Fundamental questions. They haven't answered fundamental questions. That's because, as we know and we've covered, virtually all climate science is computer models.
Yeah.
There's no physical evidence to the climate science that's pushed on everybody on a daily basis. And they've said over and over and over, in the midst, by the way, of Antarctic scientists screaming at the top of their lungs that the climate change is not affecting Antarctica. Yeah. At the same time that they're doing this, they are sending more and more scientists to Antarctica, specifically under the official auspices of finding evidence, physical evidence of climate change. They're saying it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. Then they send Dr. Ash, an astrobiologist, to Antarctica to find climate change. And they admit, sorry, real quick, they're admitting we have fundamental questions. Fundamental, folks, means the very first questions that you need to answer. Foundational questions that you should not be making assumptions about any type of science without having answers to the fundamental questions. And that's because they don't have these answers. They rely on computer models.
Yes. And a theme that we've seen come up a lot with the scientists who are being sent down there in the context of climate change and all this, we're all researchers of dark energy. Do you remember that?
Dark energy, astrobiologists.
Dark energy.
Yeah, give me all that dark energy. But it says
real quick, much how we saw that the logical consistency of anti-vaxxers using My Body, My Choice broke their brains, broke the brains of the pro-abortionists. The fundamental questions being rebutted by Antarctic scientists is breaking the brains of the climate alarmists. And that's why they keep sending scientists to Antarctica, because Antarctica shows no evidence of climate change. But they send, there's an army of quote unquote climate scientists. They're not climate scientists. They are astrobiologists, dark matter researchers, all these weird occupations being sent down with the official mission to find physical evidence of climate change. So far, nobody's done it.
And they talk about how they're looking for air bubbles trapped in the ice rather than the ice itself, because it tells us, I guess, more about the ancient climate. It's really interesting. Here it says, Antarctica is perhaps the best place on Earth for this work. The ice almost never melts, and it's clean. It never melts, Basil. The climate change alarmism is all about how the ice is melting. But they're like, well, we got to do the research. It's a good place to do research because the ice doesn't melt. What research are you doing? Well, we're trying to figure out what's melting all the ice. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Weird.
Go back to your computer models.
Every time, this is a quote, every time I've been there, you step off the airplane flying down from New Zealand and you're just never quite prepared for it, said Goodge, who studies the mountains and valleys buried under the ice.
Cool.
So, cool guy. Yeah. And I guess TikTok is all this.
They're trying.
And the fact that TikTok is being, held up as the main vehicle to educate people just goes to tell you what population they're really after, what they want that population to believe.
Yeah.
And it's all It's all for control, it seems to me. I don't know about you. It
Just
feels
seems that way. Just got that vibe.